Now that we have our primary colors, which are yellow, red, and blue, and our secondary colors, which are green, orange, and purple, also known as violet, we are going to look at our third group of colors. So our third group of colors is a highly debated item amongst art people on what it should be called. A lot of people call it tertiary colors. A lot of people will call it intermediate colors. If you actually look up tertiary color in the dictionary, it also doesn't have a definite answer for us. So for the purpose of my art classes, we can call it either tertiary or intermediate. It is up to you. Okay, so we're gonna get started. I had to take a little break and come back, so I ended up using this little cover to keep my watercolors since I already had my secondary colors mixed. If you were not able to keep your colors or lost them for some reason, you should go ahead and mix those colors now. All right, so we're going to start off with our intermediate colors that are around our orange, yellow, and red. So the first thing I need to do is realize what the tertiary or intermediate colors are. It is a combination of the two colors that are next to it on the color wheel. Just the same as when we mixed yellow and red to make orange, we're gonna mix the two colors on the side to make the color in the center. So for example, this one is going to be orange and red. Right here, we call that red-orange. Generally, you are going to say the name of the primary color first because the primary color is the more important color. If we mix these two together, we're gonna get a color right here, which we call yellow-orange because the yellow is the primary color again, so we say the primary color first. So the way we're gonna mix these to make it easy and for us to do the least amount of work possible is we are going to take our orange, which we created right here, and we're going to split that into two paint wells. So I'm going to just dip my brush in there and move this over to another well. Make sure you leave enough over here so that you're able to use that as well. Okay, then I'm gonna rinse out my brush, dry it off, and then I'm gonna do the one that has a little less, and I'm going to add yellow to it. Yellow is a weaker color, so you can add quite a bit of it before you change it too much. Okay, and I think that is a good yellow-orange. So I'm gonna go between the orange and the yellow, and I'm going to paint that in. Okay, once I get that painted in, I'm going to wash out my brush, dry it. Sometimes if you end up with big puddles of paint and you don't want those on there, if you wash out and dry your brush and then come back over, it will allow you to pull up some of that paint. Okay, again, wash out my brush, dry it. Now I need to do my red-orange. So I've got my orange. I'm gonna add a little bit of red. That's maybe a little too much, so I'm gonna take a little of that off and mix that in. Okay, so I'm gonna go through and paint that on there. A lot of these tertiary or intermediate colors have names to them. Generally a red-orange is called like a vermilion, sometimes light red. Okay, rinse out my brush, dry it off. All right, then I'm going to go through and work on the rest. I'm gonna start over here because the colors are a little bit lighter than these ones over here. So I'm going to look at my green and split that into two sections in my palette. So I'm gonna lift this, move it over to here, lift this, move it over, wash out my brush, dry it. Okay, so I'm gonna add yellow. Since yellow is the less strong of the two colors, I'm gonna put it in the one I have the least amount in. Okay, so I've got a good yellow-green. I'm gonna paint it on there. Make sure when you're painting that you don't get the side of your hand onto the paper or you'll smear the paint. Rinse out my brush, dry it. And I'm gonna add a little teeny bit of blue. It'll give us almost a teal color. Went outside the lines a little, but that's okay. Just try to do your best. Okay, I'm gonna rinse out my brush, and then very last, I'm going to split my purple in half. Again, the purples are always the more difficult ones to make. Rinse out my brush. We're going to start with the red violet, red purple. Yours might look slightly different than mine. My paint has been saturated, which means it's had water in it for quite a long time, so the hues are very bright. If your water has been sitting in there less of amount of time, then your colors might be a little more dull, and that's okay. Okay, I'm gonna wash out my brush, dry it, and I'm going to add blue to my other one right here. Ooh, it's kind of a little more blue than I was hoping. If I look at this on another piece of paper, I mean, it's darker blue, but it's not really blue violet. So what I can actually do in order to fix that is wash out my brush and then add a little bit of the primary that's on the way other side. So I'm gonna add a little bit of red to that. And a little bit more. You don't have to do this unless your color's off. But once you understand the color wheel pretty well, you should be able to figure out which colors to add to it to get the color you'd like. All right, so I think that one looks pretty good. All right, so now I have my color wheel with my primary colors, which are yellow, red, and blue. My secondary colors, which are green, orange, and purple, also known as violet. And then my intermediate or tertiary colors, which are blue-green, yellow-orange, red-orange, red-violet, and blue-violet.